Welcome back everyone to JFace Games. Today we're going to be talking about Quest, in particular the sessions that I had recently. People wanted to hear about it and sort of what happened in my home game, and so I'm going to talk about it now. Now, this happened a couple weeks back, and it happened over 3 consecutive nights. I was on vacation with some friends, and we played Quest, and I'm going to do this over 3 videos, in essence. 1 video for each night that we played. So what happened is I went on vacation, my family and 3 other families. It just so happened that the dads of each family was my first ever D&D group back in middle school. So we've been friends a long time, and we brought all these board games, and on like the 3rd night we were there, someone said, "What's that?" pointing at the Quest manual, which I happen to have with me. And I told them, and they said, "Let's try that." So it was midnight when we started cracking this book open. Yes. Were there some drinks involved? Absolutely. So the first thing we did was create characters, and we went from there. So the creation of characters took about 10 minutes, and I have those characters here. The nice thing about Quest, if you don't know, is that there's in essence some Mad Libs for when you create your characters. So I'm going to go ahead and just read those 3. So, hi, my name is Meow Meow, you heard that right. I'm 27 years old and I stand 5'11". I'm the party's fighter. When people see me, they notice my red mohawk, my generous curves, and my devastating smile. I wear a bronze breastplate, move with casual swagger. I'm from over the pond, where my people are known for a great chaos. I believe in honor, loyalty, but my murderous side can get in the way. I dream of getting revenge to those that wronged me. Then we have Scarling. My name is Scarling. Hi. I'm 25 years old. I stand about 6'6". I'm the party's naturalist. When people see me, they notice my sweet beard, my iridescent eyes, which are red, and my... I can't read that one. Something presence. A towering presence, very tall. I wear no shirt, a hemp shoulder bag, and I move with a swagger, another swagger. I'm from a wolf pack, a secret cabal, and where my people are known for hunting and farming and keeping the temple sacred. I guess keeping it safe. I believe in the circle of life, but my human side can get in the way. I dream of a land untamed by industrialization and oppression. And then finally we have Quan Bizzle, better known as Q. I'm 65-year-old and I stand 6 feet tall. I am the party's spy. When people see me, they notice my white beard, mustache, and my forgettable face. I wear a natural tone cloak, and I move with a grace. I'm from a great metropolis where my people are known for losing a great war. I believe in the ends, but my hedonist side can get in the way. I dream of overcoming a corrupt government. So what's really cool is that you have all these prompts in the player's handbook, and so it gives you some prompts. These aren't just, they're not just filling in these gaps willy-nilly. They actually have some prompts, and they take some ideas from it, so it took them less than 10 minutes. Then there's a Mad Libs for the actual world profile, and there's a lot of prompts in the book, and so I just flipped open the page and I had them round robin go through this, choosing which prompt they wanted. Okay? And so this was the Quest world that developed. Your story begins in the great capital of Veneria, a rebel stronghold from the Shattered Lands to the Temple of Ages. You'll find people ruled by an iron fist. In this world, magic is outlawed, danger is everywhere, and daily life is raucous and competitive. It's a lot like Dragonlance. People here are hopeful that the revolution will succeed, but the ruling is tightening their grip. So, at this point in time, I saw a theme that someone wanted to overcome a revenge, someone was a naturalist, wanted to get away from industrialization and oppression, and then someone had an overarching corrupting government they wanted to overthrow. So my quick thought was, okay, let's quickly sort of now talk through a little bit of the environment. And what I came up with, because I thought it'd be an interesting hook, was that the world setting was going to be that they start in this great city, and it's the rebel stronghold because there's a rebellion and there's an overarching sort of evil. So you probably have some Star Wars themes there, but the main thing was that this Inaria, this city they were in was, in essence, like a volcano or a big gorge of some sort, but a volcano, or that the walls of the city were these natural walls of this, sunken in volcano. You think of like Ungoro Cave, Cavern or Gorge in World of Warcraft, it's the big walls on the outside. And so it's naturally defended. And so it's this naturally defensible city, and it's the last city on this whole continent. It's the last bastion or haven from, it said people ruled by an Iron Fist, so I just took Iron Fist and said the Iron Fist, which is this large conquering entity. At this point in time, I have no idea what the Iron Fist is. I have no idea how they're conquering this land. I have no idea why they are now only in this last bastion sort of location of an area. But the beautiful thing is, it's like, one of the tricks I like to use is I like to give a lot of extra detail, a lot of extra descriptive detail, because the descriptive detail then gets the players kind of to latch onto things, and then with it being kind of open-ended, plot develops kind of naturally on its own. So the idea is they are starting in this city. This city is a hollowed out sort of volcano where the walls are the naturally defensible. Outside the walls is pretty much the rest of the continent has been sacked, and so at any point in time they could be conquered by this Iron Fist, but thus far they've been able to repel any sort of smaller attacks or skirmishes coming at this. So this is where we're at. The last thing you get to do is there's an adventure hook in Quest, and you actually have a spot for it down here, and it gives a bunch of like optional like starting hooks. And so I let them choose one, and the person who chose it was that in essence there is a purple fog coming out of a building, a person comes running out of that building, and they run up to you and they tell you to run, and then they die, right? And so that's where it started, and I let them just go from there, right? Now, what's the other reason I chose this city, this sort of format, is because it gave both a constraint and a potential climax, right? By giving this perfectly defendable city, it kind of was foreshadowing in a way that I could finish this third day by the defensible city now being attacked, and it's sort of giving up its defenses. It's almost like, I think it's Maslow's gun, or where it's not Maslow's, it's someone's gun, where it's the idea if you see a gun in a movie, you're going to have to fire off that gun at some point in time. By design, you have to, otherwise you shouldn't even see it. It's wasted airtime. So I probably knew at this point in time that one of the options for a climax was that we were going to have a big attack. And now I have this hook, and it's like, I don't know what this hook means, but we'll see what happens. So at this point, I have no idea where we're going. So I just use that kind of, I'm going to give extra descriptions and see what happens, right? Because I knew that the first half of this night was going to have to be idea emergence. I was going to have the players just kind of latching on to certain things I say, and then we would go that way. So the players are walking in this guarded city, and this guy runs out of this house, and he now dies. So they just check him. Immediately they check him, and they find that there's like this handprint embedded on his hand. Doesn't really mean anything, but I'm just going with it. And they also notice that this fog is coming out of this building, and so they immediately go over there to check at that building. When looking in, they see two shadowy figures. At this point in time, Q decides he's going to sneak around the back of the building, and based on, I forget who made a bad roll, it was now time to ratchet up some of the tension. So with Meow and Scarling looking through the window, they could see the two shadowy figures moving towards the back door of the building, which meant that, okay, you've now got a scenario here where you can either let them know that you're here and shout out, or Q is going to be possibly on his own dealing with two people. So I believe it was Scarling who said, I'm going to run in there. I'm going to run in and I'm going to deal with it. And this was my first opportunity to have a thematic plot hook kind of develop on its own. So what that means is that he runs in and he fails, and he gets a catastrophic failure, which is rolling a 1. And in Quest, those ones end up being sort of, catastrophe gives you an opportunity to say something horrible happens, right? It's a narrative moment. And so for me, it was, you just ran into this purple fog, and you're the naturalist. He was going to use this thorn that comes shooting out of his hand, and he's tapping into nature, etc. And so I decided at that moment that this purple fog was anti-nature. In essence, he tries to use this And the purple fog, he starts coughing and choking on it once he's in there, and it's unnatural. It's almost anti-nature. Because I figured that could be a massive draw-in for that character who is a naturalist, one with nature, etc. Now, by being in this taint, he can't touch Gaia as much, and so he can't use his powers. That was already now giving me a moment to say, okay, now this Iron Fist is not just some military. They are actually against the laws of nature in some way. They're unnatural in some way. So cool. That's a I don't know where it's going, but it gives us a plot hook, and they're invested. So now you have these people. I have to figure out what they look like, right? One of them charges Meow Meow, tackling Meow Meow. Scarling's on the ground, coughing, maybe dying. The other one goes out the back door and is now dealing with Q. And at this point in time, I just decide they've got metal collars on and they've got metal like necklaces. I think that it was probably the reason I chose this was I'm currently reading Wheel of Time, and so to me it's probably an homage to the Eidons that is one of the cultures can put on people and control them. I wasn't necessarily putting it on them that they were controlled, but by putting it on them and not giving a real description as to why they're wearing them, it's now an opportunity for, are those magical items that are making them better, or are they under control? It gives the players the opportunity to try to figure things out. And sometimes when you give some vagueness that you let the players figure out, and you're listening to them talk about it, you then allow them to figure it out by just making it whatever they're discussing the actual reason. So now they feel empowered, they feel smart, they feel invested, etc. So they fight these guys, they win. Meow beats up his thug, no problem. Q ends up having a standstill, and I ended up letting this other person that Q was fighting use the purple fog as like a weapon. I thought it cinematically sounded cool that he's like firing the fog at him, and then he ends up flying away because Q rolled poorly, so he escaped. So he flies away. That never came back into the storyline, but to me that was another opportunity of maybe they use these fogs as weapons, but that never panned out. But it was another example of me just overly describing things in order to see if that was going to catch on in some way and become some sort of narrative, later on. At this point in time, they then head to, we gotta tell the rulers. We gotta tell the rulers of this city what's going on. So they immediately go to who would be in charge of the city. And I went with a council, right? And so I immediately said, there is a ruling council. And the reason I did that as opposed to one ruler is that with one ruler, now you run into the scenario of I need to convince this ruler, or there's no conflict. Either the conflict is I'm trying to convince the ruler, or I just tell the ruler and then it happens, right? So there's no potential for drama or council or issues there. So I made it a council, and I told them also to kind of ratchet up that idea that we like a little bit of drama or something, is that I told them the council is made up of a group of people that all have the best interests of the city. They just think that they should be dealing with this situation in different ways. So they're constantly at sort of like at odds a little bit, even though they all want there to be, they want resolution of this. They don't want to deal with the Iron Fist. They're kind of at odds. And so to me, I just quickly came up with, I said there were 5 people on the council, but I, in essence, came up with the 3 major people you might talk to. There was Lord Arians, who's in essence the head of the militia, the city guard. There was a guy named Thork Gristle, who's sort of the head of the seedier side of the city, like the black markets, this other. And then there was a person, and I also just because he was a part of the seedier sides, I said because Q's a spy, he's got issues with Q's. They have a history of issues where their informants or people are at odds. Just to add in something to pull Q into the story a little bit more in that moment. Pull in the player. And then I said that there was another person on the council named Prim, who was in essence the person who leads the people, like the farmers, the people, etc. So now that you've got these 3 people, they come in. I think Q, being the spy master, runs in. He was kind of acting as the leader of the group. He runs in and says, look, this is what's happening. There's an Iron Fist person in the city, and there's potentially more. And the council had varied reactions. Arians, immediately being the militia guard, springs into action, tells the guards to go off, and he's going to go send out, investigations of the city. You've got Thork, who immediately thinks that it's a lie because he doesn't like Q, and that his spies would have heard of it or seen something he feels. Maybe it's hubris. And then Prim thinks, okay, we need to alarm the city and the situation in general. But then we have this interesting opportunity, right? Where at this point in time, I believe that Scarling wanted to go back to the building they were at to investigate it before the guards get there. But with Q and Meow Meow still there, I love saying that name. I decided to have them get pulled aside by Prim, the one who's the leader of the people, and Prim now tells them, hey, there's a mole from the Iron Fist in the city, and I suspect that it's someone on the council. The reason I did this is because I thought it would be a cool opportunity to do a couple of different things. One, make it so that there was someone in the city that they felt like they had trust with, right? This Prim individual. So it was like, and I purposely did not want Prim to then all of a sudden end up being the person who was the mole later on. I didn't want to have that kind of twist. I wanted them to feel like, okay, this is the person, we have an insider, but now we also have conflict, right? So then you have two other people. Thwark would make sense because we've already telegraphed him as being a bad person, but is that going to be too obvious? And then Arians, we barely saw him, runs off. And I think that there would be some, I'd just seen Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon. And so maybe there was an homage to, let's make it the leader of the militia. But I didn't care. At this point in time, it could have been Thwark, it could have been Arians. I was just going to let it play out. And depending on where they went, I could then throw a curveball, making it one or the other. But Prim was going to be their contact. I wanted Prim to be established as that. So that was sort of what was going on. So now they've got this situation of someone on the inner council is probably bad. There might be more Iron Fist within the city. What are we going to do? So Q decides he's going to go investigate Thwark and investigate Thwark's sort of like spy network, his seedy underground, to see if he can get more information. Scarling and Meow are now back at the other building, investigating the building. So where does this go? Scarling gets there and he doesn't find anything. He gets there before the investigators get there, and he goes into the building. And I'm never going to say like, oh, you go to the building, there's nothing there. Because I don't want them to feel like I'm not going to say, nope, nothing, you can go back to wherever. I don't want them to feel like they wasted their time. So I decided, yeah, there's a trap, there's a door, there's like a basement you find. And they goes in the basement and he finds another one of these sort of like acolyte individuals. And the acolyte's holding some sort of civilian. And it looks like a ritualistic sort of like circle on the ground. So it looks like he's about to perform a ritual. Well, poor Scarling rolls another catastrophe, and his thorn comes shooting out, and the guy just kind of like waves, and the thorn instead embeds into the person, causing this ritual to go off. Scarling runs out of the building, the trapdoor closes, and he's waiting for the city guard now. So the city guards show up, and in essence, the ground where this trapdoor was explodes outwards. And this was the first time I got to use the tough choice roll in Quest. When you roll into anywhere between a 6 and 10, that is a tough choice, right? And I loved this because it got me an opportunity to give tough choices to players, but them to then use those tough choices to speak more about what their character was. So the example being here that Scarling, there's this explosion. I tell him, look, you can take no damage, but the guard that's next to you is probably going to get eviscerated by these shrapnel. Maybe die, I don't know. Or you can take that guard and knock them down, the city guard, and you take damage from it. And so once again, it's a heroic moment. He decides to take the damage, so it's great. It's a great moment. Out of this sort of like area, out of this basement, now you see one of these guys in the same collars and the bracers comes out, and he's huge. So it's like Juggernaut style. So whatever the ritual was, he's now massive. And it's this big fight between Meow Meow and Scarling and this big Juggernaut character. So that's happening. Well, meanwhile, Q went off to Thwark's area, his sort of warehouse. And in essence, I described this warehouse that looked like a lots of little stalls everywhere, runners going everywhere. I described what the equivalent of like pit bosses at a casino, these individuals that are standing kind of watching areas, and these young children that are running notes to them and running notes up these cargo nets up to these like catwalks, and then there's this like sort of lookout, right? And then it's just business, like stalls everywhere. And so he's watching this and seeing it, and he has these abilities that are really cool because the spies in that can take on personas, look like different people. So he decides to look like one of these pit bosses, grab one of the kids, ask some questions, make his way up the cargo net, get into this room, and he ends up seeing like Thwark's second in command and sort of like this network. And so he's trying to figure out, how can I find out if Thwark is the bad guy and knows more information? but not let on who I am, etc. So it was this really cool opportunity once again where he had a tough choice. So I believe what ended up happening is that in order to show his allegiance to Thwark, his tough choice was you can either tell them, something about Prim and her network, because Prim is their like ally at this point in time. So pretty much giving up, because Thwark and Prim, I kind of painted it to be that, they have different, financial networks, etc., like information networks, and they kind of at odds on the city council. You could give up to Thwark how Prim runs her operations, and therefore Thwark's second in command would understand that you're with them, or you could not give up that sort of information, but they're going to know that you're not one of theirs. And so he gives up the information. He's like, look, we've got Iron Fist in the area. This could be a problem. Yeah, I'm going to give up Prim's network at this point in time. And so he gives up the network, but he gets information from this sort of like second in command individual, and he learns that it appears immediately at that point in time that based on the information they were getting, that they don't know what's going on with this Iron Fist, but they know areas of the city that they wouldn't be. Like, it gives information of, we don't know what's going on, but we know these areas are clear, etc. So now at this point in time, they're thinking, okay, I don't think it's Thwark. So Q finally makes it back for the finale of this fight against this Juggernaut character. And at this point in time, I don't know where the story's going. I'm kind of getting at an end. Like, I don't want them to spend now a ton of downtime kind of exploring. But it just so happened that someone, I think that it was Scanling again. No, not Scanling, sorry. Scarling. Scarling again had a failure in searching the body of this Juggernaut guy once he was dead. So what I described was, you open this pouch, and in essence, this like firework streaks up in the air and explodes in this purple, like, explosion. And then you hear another one explode, like a little way away, and then you hear a fainter one. And he runs up to this, he quickly scampers up this like rooftop, and he looks, because he's got this ability to look far with his natural sort of like eagle eyes or whatever. And you can see there's a series of sort of signals going down. So obviously this person set off a signal, and now people are relaying that signal way into the distance in the city. And you can see that it's coming from like the military region, right? And so that was a way for me to say, give them, oh crap, what have we done? Like, they've set off an alarm, they know what's happening. But at the same time, it gave me an opportunity to say, this is where maybe something's happening, right? And so it was really cool that not only was I giving them a place to go, but to them it felt like agency. Like, it felt like, oh crap, things are happening, things are moving. What did I do? Because I failed and this happened, what's happening? But to me it was like, no, I need you to go over there, like, because this will move the plot along, this will be something interesting. So they go over there, they find this one city block that's kind of like, interesting. I forget the descriptors I used. And they end up at this one house on this city block of like 8. And they end up going inside, and the spy Q is using his wits to kind of navigate the person that's living there. Meow Meow's searching through the house, and Scarling goes up on the rooftop. And so Meow Meow he goes into the office, he finds this weird letter opener, because I just wanted to give something weird. And then Scarling on the rooftop is saying, I want to see, do I see anything interesting about this city block? At this point in time, maybe, I don't know. But he rolled really well, and so I wanted to give him something. So I told him that, yeah, these 6 buildings, you notice that the ground tapers upwards in the alleyways for each building, almost like these 6 buildings are on sort of like a little bit of a hill or a little bit of an apex. And he said, that's interesting. And so he immediately goes, I think there's something, he runs down, he says, I think there's something underneath these buildings. And I go, sure, yeah, why not? So I tell them, yeah, you happen to go into the guest room and you find a trap door. But the trap door has a weird looking like key slot. And so Q says, what about that, letter opener you found? So Meow Meow tries it, and what do you know, it opens it. So they go down this tunnel. They find that this tunnel leads into sort of like a old train station, sort of like depot, like a big archway. And there's like 6 buildings. It's not actual train stations, but that's the description I gave. They see that each building almost has its own tunnel there, and then they see a down in there, like a war room, and they see a little like gate that's leading under a tunnel that goes underground. And I tell them that they see Lord Arians, and he has 2 individuals with him. So they have a big, oh, it's Lord Arians. He's a bad guy. He's an Iron Fist. And so they have a small freak out moment. They listen in, they kind of hear what's going on, and then eventually they run down there and they jump down and try and attack these individuals. And at this point in time, I had no idea how, like, they've been crushing bad guys. And what's really cool in Quest is you can quickly design characters and just pick little powers and pick little bonuses. And so for him, to make him feel more like a bad guy, like an epic swords fighter, I ended up just letting him attack in between each one of their rounds. So I gave him a ton of extra actions, which was not something that was in the mechanics of the game, but to me it felt like, this is great. Like, this is going to make them freak out that he's attacking constantly. And it did. And they ended up taking out the two bad guys real quick. I had the bad guys turn into sort of like, you know, like almost like the Ghostbusters sort of dogs, like they formed and they had to fight them. And then Lord Arians, just to make it feel, once again, very unnatural. And then they were able to take out Lord Arians at that point in time. And so now they had this war room, and this was in essence the end of the night's session, and I told them that what they were able to deduce from the plans was that these small satellite groups within the city were there to weaken the city because a major attack was coming, and they think that it's within 10 days. Dun dun dun. And at this point in time, I then had to go to bed thinking about what is that major attack going to look like, and I'll tell you about it in the next video. So hopefully you enjoyed this first session of talking about Quest. I didn't go into the details of Quest itself as how it goes mechanically. I might do that a little bit more in the next session and how I designed characters on the fly. But hopefully this gives you an idea of how I started a campaign impromptu, not knowing anything about where it was going to go. And so we'll talk about the next two sessions in the next video. Next two videos, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll talk soon.